What's going on, everybody? I'm Patrick from POWLAX, and in this video, we're going to be doing a full-on review of armor mesh. Like, if you're running a drill, before we get started, make sure to hit that like button, and the coach goes over, subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. Something to now Joe. We're just going to get right behind them. So, excuse me, armor mesh. If you've been on Instagram, you've seen it. I know everybody has, and I think that, you know, getting a true, real review out there, I didn't want to do it right when I got back from LaxCon. I wanted to play with it for a while because I think that the act of playing with it in live games means a lot more than just feeling how it is in the backyard and then going to play with it. But I've got some disclaimers to go with later, but I think, I don't know if I'll ever actually play with a different piece of mesh to just kind of give you the overview of exactly what it is. But we're going to go through it, other meshes, all kinds of things, why it's good, why I like it as we move through this video. But what I'll say right off the bat is that I've never had a stick that I didn't have to adjust like as little as I have to adjust this one, and one where as I guess it might be how I strung it. I know you can add more whip to it, but with how it plays, it's just true in how it throws and the shiftiness. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. It definitely makes a play for my favorite of all time. And so now let's kind of get into the whys and how. So first off, I have a disclaimer. Disclaimer is I went to LaxCon this year, and then Chris, who created it, he launched it at LaxCon. So as I finally went down into the expo village, or the expo hall, I immediately found John from Locknots, and we all went over to that table because that's where everyone was kind of hanging out. And Chris, who the guy who made it, literally was setting up his booth, left his booth, and we went all to throw around. So if you've seen my TikTok, I forget exactly what the day it was, but I've got a bunch of videos of us throwing around with all of Chris's sticks that all had his armor mesh in it. And right off the bat, you knew it was true. It was clean. The release is, you know, extremely nice. You know, I don't like it hitting the top. It does on occasion, but like, very, very, very true, very nice. But so I met Chris at LaxCon. He gave me a couple pieces while we were there. So that's just my kind of disclaimer. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. You know, he didn't ask me to review it. He didn't ask me to post anything about it. I just got home and threw this piece in my Mirage 2.0 because I thought it looked cool and I wanted to. And really haven't had a stick that performed like this in a while, and so we'll get into some of the real live kind of play aspects, but I just wanted you to know that I met him at LaxCon and that he gave me a couple of these pieces. So when I got to throw with it on day one, I noticed right away that the majority of the pockets that I see with it are almost mid-low, almost always. And I think the reason is because the pocket's very, very shifty. So let me kind of go into the reasons why this mesh is different than all of the other meshes. So here is a piece of the mesh that's not actually strung. And so first off, what you'll notice, if I can get it to zoom in on the actual mesh instead, is basically it's one woven string. And the key to it is that it has unfixed joints. And what that means is that all of these pieces of, this piece of string, it can kind of like, you can pull this one through and, you know, they can stretch in this way and they can stretch out sideways. And each time the string goes through or wraps around another one, those can move. And since those can move, it creates a pocket that's going to almost like adjust to be as efficient as possible. Because every time you throw with it, every time you continually use it, those are kind of going to adjust just a little bit. And then once it's, once it gets to this spot where it's, just it's strung, and as the ball moves through it, everything is at the right amount of tension. It's, it kind of almost has to sit a little bit lower. Now, that whole idea is different than any other kind of mesh. So let's just take a couple different pieces. So this was ECD's base mesh before they got hooked up with POWLAX. I bought kind of the rest of it because I thought I was going to make a bunch of wax mesh out of it. This is kind of wax mesh. This is Stringer Shack, what's it called? Super Light GE or something like that. But the main difference is that if you look into each one of these, you can see that it's all woven. And so each joint doesn't move amongst itself, right? It is its own piece. And so what you end up with is basically like a ramp, right? So there's no way for any of this to kind of like flow and adjust to itself. Now, you can make mesh out of all different kinds of material. You can make it out of, you can coat it with stuff. Here is a piece of hard mesh from, I don't know, 2000. And if new stringers felt this today, like this is me trying to pull it apart. I can't even pull it apart. They would laugh. But, and then actually I've got one more to show you. But so, and then this is the ISO mesh, right? But the key is that the mesh is the piece, right? So once you string it, you should end up with essentially like a spoon. That's why we call it a spoon, right? And there's no adjusting. But with armor mesh, these can be kind of manipulated. And so one of the things I did was I tested, and you can actually still see it right here. You can see that little rectangle is a little bit bigger than the other ones. The reason is because I pulled this string as far as I could through it, and then over time, as I kept playing and pounding it in, it just went right back to where it was. So there's some concern in terms of like if someone's just going to take it and like yank it out, it might screw up the pocket. But as long as it's not, I don't know, as long as you take the time and you kind of push it back in and make it go back to where you want it, you'll totally be fine. Now, in terms of armor mesh, I probably should have started with this, but there are two different types of armor mesh. This one is called Pegasus. It's a little bit thicker. And then this one, there you go. This one is called Spider Wire. Now, you can see in the Spider Wire one that these teardrops down are actually bigger than the teardrops on this one. Now, that is just because that's how the pocket is wanting to be shaped. Now, what I'll say is that these both have the same true release. They're different heads, but they're unbelievably similar in how they're strung and how they throw. Now, there are a few big reasons why I think that this mesh is going to be my favorite for a long, long time. The first and most important is ground balls. So at my game on Sunday, I actually got complimented on how many ground balls I kept picking up, right? Now, this has a huge part of it that I really, really like. So on traditionally strung heads, what you end up with is a little space right here on the top where as you try to, this is a deep hole, so I'm in my room, I'm trying not to hit anything. As you try and scoop through the ball, there's a little bit of a lip. So as it's coming in like this, you try to scoop through, there's a little bit of a lip. So if you don't come through it and push the ball past this little lip, you're just going to scoot the ball along. Now, on the armor mesh, that's not there, right? So as you scoop through it, it's really, really flat, and you just go straight through it. It's super with ease. But so as you're coming through a ground ball and you scoop through it, it is so clean, so unbelievably clean. And so the other thing about it is it's very shifty. Now, what I mean by shifty is this. As you put balls in pockets, right? And they kind of roll up and down. The traditional ones are just going to have that kind of spoon concave shape, and they're going to maintain that shape, right? And then you can add in shooting strings, you can add in whatever you want. And it can kind of adjust the shape of the pocket. This one actually moves. So as it comes down, the whole pocket shape totally moves, and as it comes up, it kind of shifts down and then up. And so I'm a player who likes basically no whip. I like to be able to throw the same type of pass, whether I'm, trying to throw it really hard or whether I'm trying to throw it really soft. And so what I noticed about some sticks recently is that I really don't like whip at all, because as I've thrown with some sticks that have some whip, what I end up doing is if I ever kind of short arm it, I don't put enough pressure or force into the ball to make it get out of the pocket in the direction that I want. And you kind of have to be pretty strong to make that happen with a stick with a lot of whip, or you have to stop your motion, which I don't like, because I like the idea of following through. But so with this, it is super clean, and you can tell I'm not going to have like too much hold with it. I'm not going to have too much hold, but as it shifts up, I do get a good amount of hold right here. But the real key is when it shifts down, it is locked in there, right? Because all of these, it just moves really well. The ball is nice and tightly grabbed in the stick, and it's an extremely cool thing to be able to have that, as well as that nice, clean, true release that I can do. I can throw a really soft touch pass, I can throw a really fast pass, and I can throw them from anywhere. It's not to say that other mesh can't do that. I'm just shocked at how well this does, and how, as I think about what I want to do, it does it. Now, it doesn't mean I hit every shot, but it does mean that I don't have questions in terms of how I'm going to, throw. It's just having a consistent stick is awesome. And it's got to be a consistent stick in terms of how you play. Now, if you like more whip, you can put more whip in. You can build more of a pocket into the top. But for me, the big things I noticed was, one was ground balls are a cinch. Ground balls are so easy. And then probably just the way I strung it. The first time I strung way too many diamonds in the top of it, and so it was way too whippy. And then once I pulled them down, I did it just one other time stringing it. It just came out absolutely perfect. Now, the last thing I guess that I'll say is that in terms of which one I like, I think I like the Pegasus more. It's funny because Chris was like, I just like how it feels on my knuckles as I go like this. But the spider wire feels really nice like that too. And so I think the spider wire is lighter. It's definitely thinner. I think it's actually stronger too. But in terms of the feel, this one has a bit more shiftiness, I would say, in terms of shifting up and back and then side to side. But the Pegasus is just, I don't know, it feels like a cashmere blanket. It's awesome. It feels great. Whereas this feels almost a bit scratchy. Oh, this is a terrible video because I didn't go through all the things I needed to first. But the mesh has two sides. So hopefully it'll zoom in. As it zooms in here, if you string it with these, right here where this part comes outside, the teardrops, on one side you're going to get kind of rails. See how it kind of creates rails? On the opposite side, it's just going to lay flat. So you can choose which one you do. Now, for me, I chose the rails on both of them. I don't think it's really going to help you because you don't have a solid piece of, say, like leather going down the entire stick. So I think it's going to adjust itself regardless of whether you put it on either side, as you have those unfixed joints like we talked about before. But I haven't done that one yet, so that's my bad in not reviewing that part of it too. I just don't think that having that texture on it is going to give you like a rail system, because there's no connection top to bottom. It's woven in and out of each one. But so overall, oh, I didn't even mention that in the disclaimer. Like, Chris didn't pay me for this or any of that. Like, I just wanted to make it because it's unbelievable how it was. If you want to see some of my highlights, you can go to my Instagram. I hit pipe a lot. I had 3 goals this weekend. I actually need to make that post too because I asked everyone if they thought the over and under. Yeah, questions. If we can have more questions, that's awesome. What would you say it is on a whip scale compared to a normal fiber mesh such as String King, Throne, or ECD? So I would say that it can be strung however you want it to. And essentially you are creating tension as you string it. You're creating tension from here to all the other spots, right, to create the shape of your pocket. Now for this, it's going to adjust a bit in the actual pocket, and it might adjust a bit on the sides, but ultimately you are still left with tension points from the top of the head to the side of the head that create your channel, and that's what's going to create the shape of your pocket, which is going to give you the whippiness. But so I'd say you could put whatever you want in it. I don't think that it's going to, be very dramatic. So the other thing is how do you string it, right? So in terms of how you string it, if you look at the sides, here's how I string it. I'll say it like that. First off, when you string it, Chris mentioned this when we got it. Come on, there you go. These final loops on the top, you've got to make sure that you put these in and that they are all a function. Okay, that they are all attached to the top of the head. Because if you don't and you only do one, you're going to pull this piece through, right? You're going to pull one of them farther than the others, and it's not going to make it streamlined. It's not going to make it, what am I looking for? Symmetrical. Now, once you do that, on the sides, I went through this side hole just like you would normal mesh. So on a normal piece of mesh, you just go through the side hole. You can even go through this one, doesn't really matter. But on this, I just went through this. Let's see, I'll do it on the other side. I went through like this little hole. Let's do it right there. Now, I know other people who have strung it where they've gone kind of through the teardrop shape on the side. Let's get it to zoom back in. They've done it through the teardrop shape on the side right here. Hopefully you can see that. But for me, I just did it through the diamond like you normally would. Durability is amazing. So I know it's made with really awesome cordage, I guess is what I would call it. I know the spider wire touts a bunch of really awesome stats and whatnot. What I'll say, I mean, I've played with it in 3 games. I play with it every day. What I'll say is that it hasn't changed at all in that amount of time, but really I don't know. I know that as I look at it, I don't see any wear in any places. The only wear I see is on the scoop of my head or the sidewall string. But it seems to be very durable. I know that the piece that Chris had at LaxCon was, I want to say like 10 months old, and it looked just like all the brand new ones. Now, I know for someone who's actually creating something, they're probably going to be playing with each new piece that they make, but his was in a stick that he had beaten up, but the mesh looked awesome, and I know it had been in there for a while. Any more questions? Let me know. I may remake this video, who knows, because I think that in terms of putting all the information I needed into certain spots didn't really happen, but that's what a live stream does, and it lets me get stuff out. But so if I could do a quick synopsis on Armor Mesh, the first thing is that the thing that makes it its own brand new thing is that all of these joints in the mesh are not linked. So they're not tied together. They can fluctuate, which allows the pocket to kind of almost adjust itself to create the most efficient shape and pattern. Now, what pattern that will end up with is dependent on how you string it. And it strings up for me almost exactly like you would string up anything else in terms of all of these holes All of the rectangles you see are basically diamonds, just like they're diamonds here. And then you have to make sure when you get it that you string the tops to the top of the head. Make sure you hit every one so that that top row will lay flat and it won't be pulled in any other random direction. And then my favorite part about it is that it doesn't give a big kind of hump over here when you're creating the scooping through the ball like others can do. You can see how on this head, as you scoop through, you have kind of a little bit of a ramp. The ball comes up, it's got to go over that ramp before it goes into the pocket. Whereas this one, you know, you scoop through, you hit it right, and it's just right into the bottom of the pocket. The other thing I like is how shifty it is, because if you're here, as you cradle vertically, especially for an attackman, like I cradle and the ball's right in the bottom of the stick, and as I go to throw, the whole pocket shifts up due to those unfixed joints. It definitely reminds me of the AK Savo mesh, for sure. It's an interesting thing. I actually have a piece of that, but that's not unfixed joints as well, right? It's jointed. It just had longer, fatter holes in the middle and smaller ones on the side. It's amazing how much they, and by they I mean mesh producers as a whole, kind of produce different things, right? So I was all super stoked on the ISO mesh, and then actually meeting Chris as he launched this, and then actually getting to play with it has been just amazing. I'm trying to think if there's any other thing that I could say at the end to make it. Oh yeah, there's two types. Pegasus is the thicker one, the one I think feels better, and then spider wire. Spider wire is just thinner. I think it's also stronger, and it feels very, very similar. It's just thinner. You know, I would compare it to almost like a thick wool type towel to a kind of thin, more scratchy towel. Now, how that affects the ball, I think the spider wire is going to be a little bit more more shifty than the other, but for the amount that it is for both of them, like it's next level for me. I really enjoy it. Now, I don't like a lot of whip. I know you can put whip in it because I changed it. That was the first way I strung it, was with too much whip. The pocket was too deep. But what I'm noticing now is that most people like their pockets deeper than I like mine, because I like that quick release. But so I hope this helped you. I hope you guys try it and check it out. Once again, I'm not sponsored by them. Chris gave me a couple pieces to try because we met at LaxCon. That was the first time I ever met him. You know, I've talked to him a few times afterwards, but really, in playing with it, I'm a player who likes mid-low pockets with not a lot of whip, because I like to just keep my stick here, and then I don't want to have to create all the pressure and the power to really throw passes quickly, whereas whip, you have to generate enough power to get the ball to release high, or you have to stop your motion. I don't like either of those things, and so my biggest thing is that it does all that. Like when I want to throw it, I throw it. I have a bunch of videos of feeds I had this weekend, and it helped a lot. So another question is, do you have to pound the pocket? Yes, but just like you would any other pocket, it's not too different than you would any other pocket. What I will say, and just give me a second because I'll grab my pocket pounder. And almost trip over my sticks. Exclusive from John from Lock Knots Monster. Check that thing out. And DC Dies. This thing is sweet. But so as you pound it, what you'll notice is that all of those fixed joints will readapt themselves. And so I know that it's going to get wear in terms of as you pull it down and then you pull it up. Like, let's see if I can do this experiment live. Okay. Look at this teardrop shape here, and basically the rectangle right by it. As I pound the pocket down, see how thin the channel of the row in the middle is here? See how thin these are? And then when I push it back up, those are going to spread out. And so that diamond shape has now completely changed. The key is, if you like a stick that's going to release well as the ball exits the pocket, you're golden. And that's what happens. That's what happened for me with this. Like, I'm shocked. I really am shocked at how much I like it. And so, yeah. So do you have to pound the pocket? Yes. Could I probably make it a lot deeper in certain spots? Yes. Can you make it illegal if you just continue to push it out? For sure. But that's because you're getting non-game-like pounding of the pocket, right? So if you continue to pound in the same spot over and over again, those unfixed joints are going to adapt themselves to just that spot. Whereas what you probably want is that all overall coverage. And so, like I mentioned before, when I took one of these pieces and I just pulled it so that it kind of came through really far, I'll just do it. Okay, so here. One of the things you can do with it is you can pull one piece. Let me find the same square so I can just redo the same one. So if you pull one piece of it really hard, it will come through, right? See that? That's not what you want to do, but I'm putting in the work for you. But so, like Lars was talking about, Luke Sidewalker, or Sidewall Jedi, was talking about how he's worried about doing this with face-off men, because if their sticks get caught together, you're going to yank one of these strings out. And so once that's out like that, now you have a bit of a different pocket shape. It's actually not too much different. But if I go in and then I just keep pounding it and pounding it, I'm away from the mic. If I keep on pushing it back, those joints will refix themselves as you play with it. But so now it's back to about normal, but I did pull it out, and you can totally see where I did it, right? So we'll go like this. You can definitely see that this was the hole that it happened on, and that this teardrop is going to have a little more of an adaptation to get back to it being its true self. But it is something where it will go back to normal. It will go back to what it finds as its new, most efficient pocket placement and pattern. If anyone who just joined has any questions, feel free to ask. I've got another maybe 4 or 5 minutes before I got to go get my son out of bed. But so yeah, if you have questions, definitely let me know. We got to keep pushing P. What you're doing matters. I appreciate it. Thank you. I hope you guys find what I do valuable in addition to this, all of the other videos and stuff. But so, yeah, I think I might take and edit this down into just the last little bit. So in conclusion, I'm going to run through the points again. Maybe I'll make this whole video. First off, I met the owner, the creator, Chris, at LaxCon. You can get Armor Mesh at armormesh.net. I find it hilarious that he chose net because it's like a net. So why would it be .com? Duh. I met him at LaxCon. He gave me a couple pieces right when he launched his booth. We went and we threw around with him. Liked him from the get-go. He did not pay me to do this. He gave me 3 pieces, and so I appreciate him for doing that. Let me kind of check it out. It is now probably my favorite mesh that I've ever had, and for the following reasons. First off, there's no lip when you pick up ground balls. Now, if you put a tight shooter in there because you need to, because say you strung it with too much whip or whatever, you may need to put a shooter in there and you may be able to create that lip. But for me, in terms of having a nice low pocket and then a nice clean true release, that's how I like my sticks. This strung up perfectly to do that. And so the reason why it's different than other meshes is because it has unfixed joints, meaning that as the string wraps around itself and creates little kind of SI joints, these joints can move along each other, so they're not fixed. Whereas this, if you look at one of the diamonds and the I guess X's here, that mesh is fixed, which means that once you create the shape of your pocket, that's going to be the shape of your pocket. Whereas this can actually shift forwards and back a small bit on each joint. And so that allows it to kind of shift up to create your channel or the ramp for the ball. And then it also lets it shift down, where most of the pockets I've seen have been nice, big, fat, low pockets, but really nice, clean, true releases as they shift back up. The next part, there's two types. This is Pegasus, it's thicker, and then this is spider wire that's thinner. Now you can see how both of them kind of have a little bit of a different shape to them. And what I mean by that is you can see that the teardrops in this one, these, are a little bit thicker on the top than this one is. And so, yeah, that's basically your overview. I like it a ton. It gives me nice, clean releases, and, definitely something that helps me. Okay, so last thing, and then actually let's just see if he's awake. Yeah, he's definitely awake. Okay, cool. So last little bit is pattern. So I've seen people do this a lot of different ways. I think that finding the way that you like to string your sticks is everything. And I think the main thing in terms of stringing it is going to be doing it how you would naturally do another piece of mesh, because that's how I started. It did give me a really whippy stick at first, but that was because the height of each diamond was a lot less. Maybe it was more. I don't know. Here's what I did. First off, I just wove the top parts through. Once again, make sure you lock all 7 of these top loops to the top of the head, or else it will be unsymmetrical. And then on the side, this is actually strung with a single string all the way around. On the side, I went lock on the second on the side, I guess, and then I don't know all the lingo with stringing. I skipped 3, so 1, 2, third with the first one, and I skipped a hole. This is a Mirage 2.0. Then I did 1, 2, 3, skipped a hole again. Then I did 1, 2, 3 again, and didn't skip a hole. And then I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I did every third hole here. Now, I strung it in a way that works for me, which was I basically treated every single one of these holes as if it were just a hole in the side of the mesh. Now, one of the things I see in my sticks that I don't see in a lot of others who have strung it is kind of leaving the tension loose on certain parts. See how this part kind of hangs up here? Now, if I had just wove the sidewall string through it and kind of pulled it down, I don't know how, it would have affected it a little bit. I don't know how much, but, that's kind of just the pattern. I definitely think if you shifted it up, you can get more whip, but, it's all kind of up to you. I think that just messing with it is probably the best way to go. That's going to wrap it up for me this morning. Thank you guys for checking out, watching. I hope this helps you in purchasing it. You can get it at armormesh.net. Definitely tell Chris that Patrick sent you or POWLAX sent you. And yeah, that'll wrap it up. Let me know if you guys have any questions. You can always hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. And yeah, go check out some of the highlights of me playing with it. It's definitely ground ball machine. Have a good one, y'all. I'll see you in the next video.